College football fans, Peter Bartell here at Pigskin PD on X, live here, streaming live on YouTube and X. I just wanted to have some fun before week 2 of the playoff games. I got no system to this episode, man. I just recorded 2. One's up on the Top NIL Earning Athletes on YouTube. Check that out. Subscribe to the channel on YouTube. Just search my name, Peter Bartell. It'll come up. I try to record 1 episode a day, do some live streams mixed in. This is definitely just a live stream off the cuff. Talking college football playoff. I want to get your guys' thoughts on this, though. This ain't about me. So feel free to hop on. Pete, how you doing, man? Good to see you. Feel free, Pete, anybody else, any comments, questions you have about the playoff games that you want to dialogue about upcoming, put it in the chat. Glad to discuss it and see what you guys think. If you don't have access to the chat, I think some people don't. I'm going to be looking at my notifications on X as well, or like I said, go to YouTube and comment there, and it'll all be coming through on my feed. I'm going to be monitoring it. But follow, by the way, Pete the Greek here, Pete Dorvatakis on Pete, if I got your name wrong, man, pronouncing it, I'm sorry. On X. He's awesome. And he's the greater Pete of the two. Awesome spaces, has some he's FSU to the core, but definitely an educated college football fan all around. He has some awesome spaces with former and current FSU players, as well as like administration and that kind of stuff. So Pete's an awesome guy. Follow him. Thanks, Pete, for hopping on. It's crazy, man. I just heard about the lawsuit with Leonard something. Floyd Little, not Floyd. I got the last name wrong, but the basketball coach, 6 players last year, just filed a lawsuit against the former FSU basketball coach because of, I guess, supposed promised money. And the facts are still not concrete, but they're claiming he promised us money. We didn't get that money. We are now suing. So we'll see what comes of that. But they now got, it's 3 ongoing expenses, we'll say, because they're not a lawsuit. It's like one's like to get out of the ACC. The other one is not a lawsuit, but the renovations, which is awesome, on Doak Campbell Stadium. And then the other is now this with the basketball team. So hoping the best for Knoll Nation, but good to see Pete here. I'll announce the games too, guys, but put in the comments in the chat anything you want to talk about here. Pete's got one. Thanks, Pete. Like I said, follow him. Good follow. Better than me. So Pete said, all good, brother. Happy New Year. Happy New Year to you too, Pete. Happy New Year to all holidays for anybody that celebrates anything. Let's see if Boise can pull it off. Yeah. So on that, Pete, Leonard Hamilton, thank you, was not going to get that last name. Thank you. Forever will, though, because now, Pete, I will correlate it to the show Hamilton, the Broadway musical. Not that makes any sense, but that's how I'll do it to remember it. So thank you. Back to the comment on Boise. Man, do you think, Pete? I mean, the spread last I looked was 11. I recall against Penn State tonight. I think they can do it. And I think the reason is their O-line. It's not, yes, the obvious is Ashton Jeanty. And that's all I've been hearing about, right? Like, by the way, Ashton Jeanty this, Ashton Jeanty that. If they can neutralize him, then XYZ, Penn State's got it. Like, I'm not saying Penn State does not have an elite defensive line. Drew Aller is coming along massively at quarterback. The 1-2 punch with Nick Singleton and Katron Allen at running back. Penn State's got a team, man. James Franklin is what he is. He's a coach that wins at least 10 games a season. Ironically enough, there's a lot of coaches that don't. Not ironically, it is what it is. There's a lot of coaches that don't, that wish they could be in that place. So, this narrative rhetoric around let's fire James Franklin, Ryan Day, they're not doing good enough. I'd take them. thanks. Like, well, I mean, my team, we're in a pretty good place right now with Fran Brown, but we're still not even 10 wins a year. We're year one. But aside, my point is, you get it. There's a lot of programs that would take coaches that are winning 10 plus games a year. So Penn State's bill, I do think Boise pulls this upset. And I think a lot of people are not giving enough credit to that Boise State offensive line as a whole. It's just Ashton Jeanty, Ashton Jeanty, Ashton Jeanty. That's all the talk is about. The other thing, too, is Maddox Madsen. He's been playing great quarterback this year for Boise State. Malachi Nelson, I think, was the transfer from USC this past year to USC. Lost the job to Miller Moss at USC, was a 5-star coming in out of high school class of 2023. Didn't get the job, so transfers. Everybody assumed when he transferred to Boise, the job was his. No. Maddox Madsen took it, did not look back. There was zero controversy around who should be the starting quarterback for Boise the whole year. The biggest controversy was whether or not they were going to beat UNLV. Oh, and they did that too. So I just like that team. And I think not enough credit is giving, again, this all to me centers, yes, Maddox Madsen's had a good year. That offensive line has been a part of that as well. Jeanty's amazing. Nearly broke Barry Sanders' single season rushing record. I'm second in the Heisman. Obviously, I'm not taking anything away from Ashton Jeanty, the individual player, and I'm glad that people are shouting that out. But I do think that more attention and call out needs to be given to that offensive line as a whole. Just a few hours left here to watch the tape, but YouTube it. They are an elite unit. Keyword unit. They are one. And that's a very undervalued, underrated part of a football team as a whole, I feel, but specifically with Boise, those guys move mountains. And I understand it's the group of 5 level. Look at how the group of 5 is tearing out and showing up in bowl games right now. I understand that it's not truly a fair assessment because a lot of Power 4 teams have had massive opt-outs against these group of 5 schools, but still, it is what it is. They're winning these bowl games. So I say that to say that I don't think last year Tulane showing against Oregon was an awful showing representation for the group of 5 New Year's Six Bowl. But long term, we have seen some competitive games involving group of 5 schools. I think tonight Boise State gets it done. I think they move mountains with that offensive line, and I think it's something you really have to pay attention to. Also, Penn State is a Penn State Big Ten offense, I'll call it. I don't think Ohio State looks like a Big Ten offense all year. I think Penn State looks like a Big Ten offense all year. In their defense, Drew Aller is a quarterback that's only been playing quarterback for not even a decade. He didn't grow up from the age of 8 to 10 like most of these kids playing quarterback. He's only been playing quarterback, I think, since freshman or sophomore year of high school. Somebody can correct me on that in the chat if they want, actual year, but I do factually know they announced it last playoff game. Like, he hasn't been playing that long. He's gotten better as his college career has went along. Specifically this year, you've seen in the second half of the year how he's improved. But nonetheless, he's still like a newer-ish quarterback to the game. I can see Boise getting it done. I'm also a fan of upsets, so why wouldn't I shout out an upset? Man, let's all hope, right? These second-round games were better than the first round. The best game was Texas-Clemson, and it was, like, decent, but it was, like, you pretty much knew Texas was just child's playing them the whole time. Like, anytime Clemson would get within a touchdown, Sarkisian just said, okay, I'm going to start trying now. That's how it felt. I know that's literally not what happened, but just comically, that's how it felt. So, Pete, I got his last name right. Yeah, you're welcome on the shout out. Yeah, no doubt. Leonard Hamilton, he said, and then we are in the NIL world, that's for sure. I just did a podcast recording. I mentioned on the top 20 NIL athletes. Pete, there actually is not any Florida State on the list in the top 20 valuation per on 3. But some cool names on there and stories. One that I found interesting was Arch Manning is third NIL valuation, nearly about $2 million valuation-wise, valuation being like estimated projected, because we don't know. These contracts aren't really public contracts like the NFL. We don't know like concretely how much they're making, but NIL on 3 says valuation wise, Arch is making $2 million more a year than Ewers, and they're 3-4 by the way in valuation. The other one that's cool is Libby Dunn. It's not football, but the gymnast from LSU, she's making like $4 million a year NIL. I know her college career is over. It concluded last spring for the gymnastics team, who shout out LSU gymnastics, national title. That's cool for Libby to go out on. But it shouldn't include her, honestly, but at this point it does. But check it out. Check out the episode. I go into detail on all of it. It's pretty interesting. Vader, does Milroe leave? I don't know what you mean by Bader, but assuming it's a typo, I get the question for sure, Pete. Does Milroe leave? Let Pete know, let I know in the comments if you think Milroe leaves. Let's see if I got any here. I'm going to refresh. Nothing on Twitter, YouTube, nothing, but put it in here if you want to as well. Good question on Milroe. You can also ask the same on Ewers. I want to springboard that to Ewers as well. Hey, Andy, good to see you. I'll get to Andy's point here as well. Crimson Vader commented. Oh, thank you, Pete. Okay, Crimson, good to see you, man. I guess Pete, thanks so much. That's a good refresher. I'm not seeing Vaders, man. I guess I got to go on to YouTube as well while I'm streaming this, because for some reason just 1 second, guys. Trying to show it. I don't know why Bader's not showing. I'll figure that out later, though. I appreciate you calling that out, Pete. Bader, you did say, thank you, Pete. Bader, I'm so sorry, man. You said that first thing, and I just went right to Pete. And it's not even like it wasn't showing. It's showing for me. Crimson Bader, awesome, man. Good to see you. We talk a lot, too. Follow him. Watching Milroe gives me brain damage. I agree. I wasn't watching this game because I didn't really have to. I saw enough Kalen DeBoer. Crimson Bader's a loyal Bama fan. So I'm not surprised that Crimson watched the game. I saw what I needed to see in the regular season. Like I had somebody just, by the way, like comment. I wrote an article on Lenora Sellers being my preseason pick to win the Heisman, which I always do every year. And they were like, have you seen him? How are you picking him? He's awful in this bowl game. Yeah. I, though, didn't, and I'm not watching the bowl game. I don't need to watch the bowl game. I don't watch bowl games that don't matter, A. B, I watched the whole season, to answer your question. Not 2/4 of a bowl game where half the guys were opting out. Not literally half the guys. Do not take that out of context. But I watched the whole season. I watched him take over a game against Clemson. I watched him Steph Curry it, Michael Jordan it, whatever you want to call it. That's what I saw. Not a bowl game. So, Milroe, man, but touche, because preseason I picked Milroe to win the Heisman. I don't spit sunshine and butterflies all the time. Pete knows this. Crimson probably knows it too. I'll tell you how it is. I'm gonna raise my hand when I mess up. When not mess up, none of us get everything right. When I get stuff wrong, I'm gonna call it out. I picked Milroe to win the Heisman. So, it's frustrating, man. Like Crimson going into this season, I really thought, and my justification was like, and Jimmy Stein with Lockdown pointed this out, Lockdown Bama. DeBoer has groomed 3 different quarterbacks with 3 different skills, 2 with different skill sets. He groomed Michael Penix at Indiana and then again at Washington. And he groomed the guy at Fresno. I forget his name. He's in the NFL though. And then actually he had gotten out of the portal, the former Mississippi State quarterback, Will Rogers, to Washington. So not necessarily groomed is not the right word. My point of saying that, Crimson, was all 3 of those guys have different skill sets. Will Rogers, Michael Penix. So Penix is kind of dual threat-ish, at least pre-ACL injuries. I'm not trying to be funny. It is what it is. Will Rogers is absolute statue quarterback. Milroe is a dual threat athlete, like athlete more than quarterback in some situations, depending on the coach. Right. So the fact that he was willing to take Milroe on, stay committed to Milroe, I thought this guy's done it twice and he's confident he can do it with Will Rogers. Like, why not? Penix followed him from Indiana for a reason because he trusted him and he knew he could develop him. So aside, I was wrong on that. But man, you got to think, like, to Pete's question and Crimson's point, and then Jason, good to see you. Andy, I'll get to your guys'. Put it in the chat too. Let me know what you think about this stuff. Any thoughts on the playoff games as well? But Milroe, to me, I was surprised. I think he has to transfer. I think, especially, like, here's the thing: if you're DeBoer right now on that Bama roster, you have true freshman Keelan Russell, who's all the talk, class 2024 recruit, maybe 25. I get my classes crossed up. He's an incoming freshman. He's been prepping for the bowl game against Michigan. They also have Ty Simpson, who's been on the roster now. This will be, I think, his third year. High recruit out of high school. He's waiting in the wings. So guess what? If Milroe comes back to college if he comes back to college, it's going to be his quarterback, right? And Pete's getting to this point, like NFL, do you position change maybe? If he comes back to college as a quarterback, you have DeBoer. You either have to hitch your wagon to Milroe again, who's already shown you with a year of coaching under you that what he cannot do more than what he can do, to Crimson's point, or you go with Ty Simpson. If you go with Milroe again, you know concretely that Ty Simpson's exiting. So then your quarterback room is Jalen Milroe, Austin Mack, who's going to be going into his third year of college. He was the, at that time, 17-year-old backup at Washington to Penix, who followed DeBoer to Bama. Massive guy, too. Apparently, he's like huge, like tall. And then you have Keelan Russell, true freshman from Texas. Gatorade Player of the Year, by the way, nationally. So big time recruit. But it's not it's interesting for Milroe. Like, I don't know. Like, somebody told me, like, it was in a space. I forget who it was, but it was a good point. Like, Milroe's going to go pro. Like, if you think about the quarterbacks this year, it's not a strong class. Shedeur Sanders, yeah. Carson Beck has underperformed. Now he's got the UCL, which is going to hurt his stock. Quinn Ewers has recently been told before the Clemson game that he could use another year in college to improve his draft stock. And those were like 2 and 3 quarterbacks off the board, right? Milroe, what? Going into the season, you could argue maybe Crimson was 4 or 5. Maybe if you want to put him there, you can comment, let me know what you think. But, like, I think Carson and it's such a weak class. Carson and Ewers actually helped, in a way, Milroe to stay elevated, and Milroe has helped Ewers and Beck to stay elevated. Like, they've all been subpar. I would think out of the 3, I think Ewers has been the best, especially the Clemson playoff game. Like, that's a legitimate game. Like, that matters. He showed out. He did well. If Ewers can put up 2 or 3 more performances like this and run Texas at least to the CFP national championship, playing like he did against Clemson, no questions asked. I think he's proved himself enough where he now doesn't need another season in college, and he showed enough. Ewers, by the way, to be fair, like, he's a young player still. He reclassified when he enrolled at Ohio State. He classified as a junior, so I think he may be 20 right now, maybe 21, even though he's a junior on the field. So, by the way, another one, Pete, I just lost it. It was an FSU correlation. But I'll get back to it. I think out of those 3, like, they're all just, oh yeah, like, Pete, I remember as a Bills follower, EJ Manuel, we drafted him first round. Like, and I think it was like 20 something overall. And, like, going into that draft, like, that was another weak draft class. Like, you guys have to understand, sometimes it's positional, like, value of that draft class. This past one, Milroe would have went like 5th round, 6th round. especially after this season he just put on. I don't think anybody could argue that, right? Ewers and Beck probably would have been in the same boat. That's why Beck probably came back to Georgia, because Beck, remember, was kind of flirting maybe with going to the NFL. I had a Bama fan that was like, I think it was LB on X, was like, where was he going? They said Carson Beck's coming back. Like, I know she knew, but it was funny. Like, she was playing on him. Like, wait, where was he going? Like, he's not that good, insinuating. But like, that reminds me, like, this year's class of like why guys like EJ Manuel, Pete, although a decade or so ago, went as high as they did. EJ did not go first round. EJ Manuel drafted. Let me see what round he went. Thank you for that info. I swear he went first round. Let me see. Sorry, guys, for the delay. In the first round of he was selected by the Buffalo Bills in the first round of the NFL 2013 draft. However, that is Wikipedia. I trust Pete more than Wikipedia. So, TBD, let's say he was drafted early. It says pick 16, Pete, on Wikipedia. So, I thought at that draft, and Geno Smith's another example, by the way. I don't think it was the same year, but Geno was also drafted first round by the Jets. That's another one where I'm like, what are we doing here? And we saw Geno to EJ'd. So Geno, good for him. I think he took advantage of that time on the bench, and he's had some good years later in his career, getting that experience and sitting there and learning. But aside, man, it's just a wild year. Like the devalued quarterback class, we'll call it, of the NFL, leaves it up in the air for Milroe. But to Pete's point too, Pete mentioned, and then Andy, I'll get to yours. Thanks everybody for sharing your thoughts. Pete mentioned something about the running backs. Yeah, is Milroe a real quarterback or glorified running back? I think going into this year, everybody thought, like, shoot, he's going to keep improving. Now he has an offensive-minded coach under Kalen DeBoer. At least I thought that. I mean, you guys can let me know what you thought. I'm not going to say, yeah, I thought he would regress. I thought the counter. I just told you he was my preseason pick to win the Heisman. So obviously, as a quarterback, I didn't think he'd regress, but he regressed. I see him as more of a tight end, though. And somebody made the DJU call out, too. Like, DJU is declared for the draft, which I think is a mistake. But regardless, like, I think it was Kev Pryor, who's been a guest on my podcast, but he said EJ needs to, or DJ needs to switch positions, like a tight end body. That's how I kind of see Milroe, but I don't think Milroe is as tall as DJU. But definitely position change regardless. Like, you can look at Pete on the counter for Bama. Blake Sims, you probably remember him because I think Blake played you time or two as Bama's QB. But early in Sims' career at Bama, he was a running back, converted to quarterback, so it'd be the flip. Their body types and everything, Milroe and him, honestly, are kind of similar. So we'll see. Ironically enough, another guy, LSU, 10, 15 years ago, Russell Shepard, was recruited to LSU as an athlete, quarterback in high school. He was like Allen Iverson on grass. Watch Allen Iverson's high school tape, then watch Russell Shepard's. Les Miles recruited into LSU in the class of 2010. Turned him into a receiver. That's another guy who he underwent a position change and he had like 7 decent seasons on the Buccaneers, mainly in the NFL. But if he had been kept as a quarterback, who knows what he could have done. But that was like another athlete type example. I get off on tangents on these lives, guys. So thanks for bearing with me. Just want to sound off. Let me know what you think about these playoff games. Anything else? Good comments in the chat, man. Good, awesome stuff. Pete, Andy, etc. Let me get to Andy's here. And here I am, a college student making $12 an hour to run a student paper. Yeah, man. Andy, good stuff. Hey, message me. That offer is still there, Andy. If you want to write for Fansided, let me know. I cover all college football now, so it's fun. Keeps me open. Whatever comes up, whatever I want to write about, whatever I feel about, I can. But I do understand, man. I went to school 15 years ago. I did broadcast journalism. Communications is my major. So definitely time intensive and the right time intensive to get that experience, that networking. So good for you, man. You're doing good stuff with that, with the paper. It's awesome. I envy you because like when I was there, it was 2009 I graduated, so I was there 2005 to 2009. You can imagine, like, it was largely print media. Like, Facebook existed, but not even Facebook like it is now. There was no groups. It was just writing on people's walls, MySpace, Instant Messenger, AOL, and there was no Twitter, there was no Instagram, there was no TikTok, like different avenues to get content out, to get viewership, to engage, to socialize. So, man, I envy you, but good stuff. I appreciate interacting with you on X for sure. Comment in the chat. Let me know what you guys think about these games. Pete posed the question of Boise. They have a shot to upset PSU. I think they do. TBD though. That offensive line of Boise looks really good. Just watch tape on them. They move mountains, man. They're a good unit. Like, I understand that Genty is Genty, and he is that dude. I'm not taking anything away from him, saying he would be anything less without an offensive line, but he would be less without that offensive line. He probably gets 6-7 yards of carry instead of 7 or 8, maybe not. He was over 9 at one point, I think. They move mountains, man. They are a unit, and I think that that's not talked about enough. That matters. Andy said, "Oh, let me get to Jason next." Sorry, Jason, I skipped you. I'll get to you. I skipped Crimson too. I'm not good at this. I got Pete's my guy. He's in my chat. He keeps me in check. How long? I love how Bama could hypothetically beat any team in the playoff, but not Vandy, Oklahoma, Tennessee, or Michigan, right? Like, yeah, Andy, I saw too. You're spot on. Southern Miss beat him right now. Let's be honest. That Navy just did, kind of, right, by beating Oklahoma. I saw some kind of like pregame trophy they gave DeBoer of like a small dolphin or something in Clearwater, and on social media they were like playing fun with this. Was yesterday before the game. They were like making fun of it. Like, we went from holding national championships to this, which basically furthers your comment too, right? Like, even these, like, beating and not beating these teams, like, dude, that's 1 year. And I was just talking to my dad about this. Like, I am not in the Team DeBoer camp. I was preseason, so I'll eat my words on that. I thought he would work out better. I thought Milroe would be better. I sounded off on that at the beginning. It's frustrating. Like, I was a huge Saban fan of. I'm a fan of a lot of coaches. Syracuse is my team. Like, I know Andy, SMU is yours, or USM. Sorry, whoa, got to get the right acronym. USM, University of Southern Miss. Shout out. But you're always going to follow certain coaches, and Andy has a huge appreciation for the game. He's well educated, I know, through my interactions with him. Saban was one of those coaches for me that I followed. I was a fan of from his days at LSU, then with Alabama. So whoever he was recruiting, whatever team he had, whatever coaches he had, I always tried to follow that and appreciated that. And it's frustrating for me, Andy, that, to your point, just 1 year removed, he's already losing to these teams. I thought that anybody thought, even if they are Team DeBoer, there would be a regression. Anybody's going to regress from the greatest coach of all time. You're no longer going to lose 2 or less games a season. Maybe you lose 3 or 4 a season traditionally, right? But you still do, like, you have a national title here and there, a playoff appearance here and there, probably, hopefully, a little more for Bama fans here and there. But, like, anybody year one says, okay, you got most of your talent back. The only guy that you lost legitimately off of this past year's team that was worth anything to your roster in 2023 was Caleb Downs, safety. Everybody else that had any significant amount of playing time came back or retained their commitment. Caleb Odom and Ryan Williams retained their commitments. Jalen Milroe came back. Justice Haynes, the running back, came back. Ironically, he's now transferring to Michigan. Like, they didn't lose any massive guys. So I'm sitting there like, how do you not win with this talent? And the counter has been like, from DeBoer loyalists, we'll call him. I don't know. And put in the chat if you are one, that's fine. Like, I appreciate debate. That's football, sports. But, like, I just thought with his accolades, 104-12, previous record as a head coach at all levels combined, he's going to do better with that roster. Again, only omitting Caleb Downs, a significant playing time. that they would do better than 3 losses, with one of those being to Vanderbilt and Oklahoma. Oklahoma was the worst team in the SEC this year, them and Mississippi State. Vandy is still Vandy, despite 6-6. They're 6-6. It got me, Andy. So I really appreciate that call out. That's the thing that I would expect if a coach is going to regress to see in year 3 or 4 removed, not year 1 removed from Saban, with most of the players coming back. So I agree with you. They lost some good games. Jason, we'll get to your comment, and comment in the chat if you want anything here. Let me see. Let's see. I have any comments come through there? No, but appreciate everybody on YouTube. Follow it, like it. Put out an episode a day. I wanted to give a live stream on the college football playoff, though. So good stuff. Let's see. Jason said, if Bama doesn't turn the ball over, they win. Correct. Good to see you here, Jason. So that's all the comments I got right now. I will read through the playoff slate real quick. And I gave detail, by the way. I did an episode on this earlier this week on my thoughts and predictions for each college football playoff game. So this stream, I will not give that. You can refer to that episode if you want to. But I just wanted to open this up for your guys' thoughts and interactions and stuff like that on this one. So Texas plays at Arizona State tomorrow at noon, Central. Sorry, I'll give Eastern times because I know most people refer to Eastern. 1 Eastern on ESPN. All these games are on ESPN. Number 8 Ohio State plays at number 1 Oregon, 5 on ESPN, and Notre Dame plays Georgia at 8:45 on ESPN. Wonder if they'll move those start times staggered at all, just to make sure that people see the full game. If they'll delay, you know what I mean? If one goes into overtime or goes late or whatever. But anyways, good stuff. I anticipate the best game being Oregon-Ohio State. I mean, it was 43-42 last time they played. I think Arizona State's going to give Texas a better game than expected, and I think Notre Dame will give Georgia a better game than expected. Georgia's saving grace, honestly, is going to be Carson Beck exiting at quarterback and Gunnar Stockton being inserted. Report Bulldog, an account I follow in dialogue with a bit on Twitter, made a good point. They just play for Gunnar. For some reason, and I think the reason is, he said, he just puts his nose in there more. You saw that in his brief play in the second half after Carson got hurt in the SEC title game. He really does put his nose in there more. So it's just interesting to see that compared to Carson. I'm not saying Carson's a running quarterback, because he's not. But it definitely, you can see the difference for sure. And just the grit that the team seemed to surround themselves with when Gunnar got inserted. You saw, in that post-game interview, Oscar Delp was behind him and Tate Ratledge were right behind him, so excited that they won. A, B, Gunnar was the guy to get him there. So, Kev, good to see you. Follow Kevin on his podcast on X2. He's been on a couple episodes. We were talking Q's. Hey, Kevin, Pete, and Wayne, good to see you guys too in there. Kevin predicted Syracuse, no joke. Look, it's recorded on Kevin's radio show. But week 2 or 3, Cuse was beating cupcakes. They were 2-3-0. And I'm like, Kevin, we're gonna crash and burn, man. Pete knows this. He's an ACC guy at Florida State. He's seen us year over year. We start 4 or 5-0, and then we lose 6 of our last 7 under Dino Babers. And we lose the close one to Clemson, and then the wheels just totally come off. They've beaten us a lot of times in Tallahassee, and I'm telling Kevin 7-5, 8-4, we're on the up. Kevin goes, no, we're gonna win 9 or 10 games. Mic drop, Kevin. Kudos. Here's my mic, my pen. So good job, Kevin. Hey, go to Kevin for all bets. I'm soliciting. So, Kevin, I'll take commission. I'll take 2% if anybody comes to you. We can work out a deal. Just kidding. Check out Kevin's stuff. That's awesome. And him and my dad got on a show just kind of reminiscing about Cuse football with me, and that was cool. Kevin shouted out some legendary names: Rob Conrad, Kevin Johnson. Good call on that game, Kevin, too. Marlo Wax had an awesome bowl game against Washington State, so we're both glad that he played, and Marlo's definitely one of Kevin's favorites all time with Cuse. So hopefully he gets drafted. And, Kevin, I was actually in New York watching a game with my dad, so that was kind of cool, the bowl game. But he was like, yeah, he might get drafted late. And I'm like, Dad, well, at least he's getting drafted. It's a Syracuse fan. We have punters drafted in 7th rounds. We don't, since McNabb, Freeney, we don't have draft picks. So the fact that we're going to have him drafted, and if McCord cannot come back, if anybody knows the latest on that, comment, but this is great. We're going to have guys drafted. And Brown's only been there a year, so good stuff. Wayne, good to see you, man. Happy New Year to you too, Kevin. I shouted out earlier, Pete asked the same question. I got Penn State. Let me know who you guys got tonight, Penn State or Boise State. Kevin, who do you got? Anybody else? And your reason for it too, if you want. Anything playoff game related, shout it out. The reason for me is that offensive line. Ashton Genty's great, yes, but that offensive line has been a big reason Maddox Madsen kept that former USC 5-star recruit quarterback on the bench. Along with Madsen's play, I'm not taking anything away from him. He's been stellar at quarterback this year, but watch tape on that offensive line all year. They move people. And I don't care what level you're at. That's something. I think they got motivation in this game. Did you know, guys, they are less than 1% chance to win the college football playoff, Boise State? A group of 5, so it kind of makes sense. But, look at what the group of 5's doing in bowl games. They're tearing it up right now against Power 4 opponents. So we'll see. I understand the variable is a lot of opt-outs. You're basically playing walk-ons and second and third strings, but it is what it is. We'll see. That's my pick. I also like upsets. There's that. Thank you for the question. Pete said, love Coach Dillingham. Watch his pressers. They are so cool. Man, Pete, I agree. I love that. What do you say? Remember, guys, when he was that BYU game where Arizona State stormed the field and then there was 1 second left on the clock. So they had to come back out because Arizona State was trying to drain the clock by throwing it high and out of bounds, but it hit the ground with a half second left. So they told Dillingham, as he's being swarmed by fans and legit interview, basically, you have to go back to the sideline. He's dropping F-bombs, expletives, going haywire on the officials, looking at all the fans, obviously, how do we even make this happen? But they had to make it happen. The official said, sorry, it is what it is. And I don't blame them because it's football. Anything can happen. And BYU actually got the ball down to the 5 on that next play. So, but to Pete's point too, that situation, they actually did game day. I'm sure Pete saw this. They did a special on him on game day on that, and he acknowledged, yeah, definitely overreacted, but he said, I would rather care too much than care too little. And I love that, Pete, to your point. That's just an example of when I fully agreed. If you have any moments from his pressers or any other on sideline moments that you, Pete, or anybody else have noticed that you appreciate, feel free to share. I agree. I was listening to their Locked On host. I forget his name, but he did a special on Locked On Big 12, and pleasantly surprised. They've accelerated faster than people thought. I know Dillingham had time as an assistant at Pete's school, Florida State, and also at Auburn as well. But now he's truly, I saw this on game day. I didn't know this. I knew he played at Arizona State, was a quarterback there. He went to games his whole childhood. He's from there. And now, talk about literally being at home, not just his alma mater and his hometown, but they said it on game day. He shares a fence with his sister. His brother is 5 minutes away. That's amazing. There's value in that. That's what Kiffin's reincarnating at Ole Miss, basically. He hired Chris Kiffin, his brother, to be on the staff, right? He's on the same street as Kiffin. Kiffin's younger son, Knox, is now transferring from California to Oxford High School in in Oxford, Mississippi to play quarterback, play football at that high school in Mississippi. His daughter, Landry, is I think now sophomore at Ole Miss. And supposedly, according to social media and media outlets, his ex-wife is now moving back to Oxford. Presumably, like, I'm not going to TMZ this, but like, I don't know if it's a relationship or just to be closer to her kids, whatever the reason, that's cool. So that's what I like. I'm not trying to steal the episode about Kiffin now, but I just kind of correlate situations like that, like coaches that see the value, right? Kiffin made a comment, I think 2 years ago to Evie with that writes for Ole Miss, and said Oxford. This is like a legendary Kiffin quote, and Evie got it. Good on Evie. He said, "Ole Miss needed me. I needed Ole Miss more than Ole Miss needed me, or Oxford needed me more than I needed. I needed Ole Miss more than Ole Miss needed me." So that was really cool. That's how I hope Dillingham views it. So because I think he's a great coach. We'll see. It's year one, right? So they're going up against Texas, a blue blood, and like if they can beat them, that's amazing. Cam Skateboo presumably is fully healthy because I know like he was dinged up like any player was. Sam Levitt is actually outperforming numbers wise Quinn Ewers this year. I know he made some comments, pretty swagalicious, saying he was a better quarterback than Quinn Ewers. Now he's going to own it. We'll see. He's definitely elevated his draft stock for NFL Draft 2026. He would be a junior. He's got to come back next year because he's a sophomore, but we'll see. Cool to see, though. Cool to see. Thanks, Pete, for that call out. And then there's Kevin's. Fran Brown is different. I'm going in order, comment by comment, so feel free to put it in the chat, any thoughts or anything you have, and I'll shout it out. Fran Brown is different. Absolutely, Kevin. Ashley Wisniewski she has a podcast. She works for CW and Q's. Follow her, Kevin. She just started following me. They started up a podcast of their own. Her and her coworker Rachel, forget Rachel's last name, but pretty cool. They have a lot of good stuff on Q's, and actually they just had James Mungro on an episode pre-bowl game, giving his thoughts on Brown and all that. So they covered it. They actually went out to San Diego to cover the bowl game, and I saw that stadium you were talking about and stuff on an episode we did together, so that was cool. But you can tell he's different. Like, there was guys it was a video on social I saw that just surfaced. Brown was with all of his players and basically just told them go to the band in the stands, and like they embraced and sang the alma mater and stuff. So that was freaking awesome. Like, that's something that hasn't existed in Syracuse like freaking ever. So he's definitely different. He's the guy for the job. He even said, like, before that bowl game, and I'm sure Kevin saw this. If you didn't, Kevin's right. He nailed it. He said, like, I'm a tough guy to play for. That's why guys transfer. That to me, Kevin, let me know what you think. The first thing that came to my mind when he said that was Kirby Smart, because that's exactly what I heard from Kirby preseason too. And when somebody asked Kirby about NIL, they said, look, you're not going to come in making millions. Yeah, you may after 3 or 4 years, but like, you're not going to Barry Alexander it, come in as a freshman and expect to be all everything. You know what I mean? Like, you want your penthouse, go to USC. Go 6-6 and then figure out you have to transfer again because you're not being developed. I'm being passive aggressive here, obviously, but like, it is what it is. You know, Fran Brown is that different, and he's a good different. I appreciate that call out, Kevin. Just some statements he's made, like he's it. I turned to my dad recently. I'm like, they need to extend this guy immediately. I know he's only been there a year. So was Kurt Signetti. Indiana did the right thing, locked him up long term, because if you don't, some other power four is going to come calling. So I hope they lock him up, Kevin. I'm sure they're in talks now. They can't not be. Our AD John Wildhack has it too good right now to not let Brown get away. Pete, agree, was impressed with McCord. I think hopefully he comes back. We'll see. Think he has a job with Fran Brown if his playing career doesn't work out no matter what. He is definitely – they had a relationship going in, if you don't know, which was part of the reason McCord transferred to Syracuse. after Ohio State, and it's worked out well for both sides. So McCord actually led the NCAA in passing at the end of the regular season. Obviously, the conference title games happened, for which Syracuse did not partake, so that changed. But good stuff. Wayne, good to see you. I'm going to keep going here, get to all these comments. That's awesome, guys. Keep popping them in here. Just want to do a bounce back and forth, college football, bowl games, playoff games. Let me know what you think about any upsets you see this weekend happening in these college football playoff games you're most excited about seeing, players you're most excited about seeing, anything you disagree with, agree with. Wayne said, all of my favorite teams are either out or already played their bowl games. It's basketball time in Memphis. Awesome. I had Ann the Baker, follow her on X. She playfully tweeted too, my New Year's Eve plans. She's a Tennessee fan. She said, my New Year's Eve plans are watching the number one basketball team in the country. I don't know about yours. I thought that was cool. Hey, go basketball season, right, Wayne? And basketball at Cuse right now, I don't even know a record. Last I checked was 5-5. Gone are our heydays, but hey, I'll take it, right? You're going to be good in usually one or the other. There's not a lot of schools that are good in football and basketball. So right now for us, it's football. Forever, it's been basketball. So take what I can get. Cuse history, by the way, Donovan McNabb, not that anybody probably cares. He used to play basketball at Cuse freshman year. I'm sure Kevin, maybe Pete, and probably nobody else remembers this. But, yeah, McNabb played basketball freshman year at Cuse in addition to football, and then cut the cord, stuck to football. But pretty cool. Good luck to Memphis this year, Wayne, in basketball. I'm looking forward to the tournament. Actually, speaking basketball, Wayne, and Wayne, by the way, is on a podcast. They're Aaron DeNutt, I think. Check out his X and put it in the chat. He's a fun follow too, but they are actually coming out potentially, knock on wood, with the college sport or EA Sports college basketball video game again. I shouldn't call it EA Sports because 2K Sports has something in conjunction with it potentially. So, but that could be cool. I did an episode on that. Kevin said hard to go against Penn State. Fully agree. I think it's a double-digit favorite. Jason said McCord played really well this year. Fully agree. Wish he would have stuck it out at Ohio State. Dude, I definitely agree, Jason. Question to me, I mean, let me know what you guys think. I think they would have beat Michigan. 13-10 was the final of that game. You can't tell me he wouldn't have played better against Michigan. Now the counter is like, who cares? Will Howard balled out against Tennessee, which is also true. And it would be hard for any quarterback, McCord or not, to ball out to the level that Will Howard did against Tennessee. He was money. So, yeah, I don't know. But it's unfortunate. McCord did say it came out a little more nationally, but I guess he was, after that Michigan game, he was asked about like what he thought about Michigan beating Ohio State, and he said everything comes full circle. He just had a big grin on his face, so it was funny. Wayne said, I'm hoping Boise State wins, but Penn State is playing well. They definitely are. They surprised me against SMU. They definitely played a very good game. Happy New Year, Wayne. Husband duties call. Kevin said, I'm excited for ASU versus Texas. If there's an upset, it's the Sun Devils to do. Gotcha. Cool. Thanks for sharing. I definitely see it. Dillingham, man. Year one, too. That's crazy. Like, hopefully they keep it going. I sounded off on this in an episode a while ago. It'd be cool to see a West Coast dynasty again. We'll call ASU West Coast. It ain't USC right now. It's definitely not been UCLA for a while. They got problems, not to get into politics, but way more, discriminatory practices and stuff going on beyond football at that university that are also a detriment to that university. So California as a state is basically screwed. You're relying on UC Berkeley that actually has high academic requirements. And they hung out. Wilcox has still got his job somehow, Justin Wilcox. And that's because he's at the right place for it. You wouldn't thrive on that at USC or Ohio State or wherever, like going 500 each year, but he's doing just good. He's like Babers, Kevin. He's doing just good enough to keep his job at that school. Minimal expectations, and they're just floating. Pete the Greek, Happy New Year. Heading out, love your passion, knowledge of the game. Kevin said Brown is a part of the Kirby tree. They still speak and are very close. Yep, for sure. And he's got that Georgia pipeline too going. If you notice, we talked about that on our episode. Some of the guys, the Jakari Williams, the quarterback, King something DB from Georgia area started there. Jamie Tremble's tight end, going to be the next Rondé Gadsden. If you saw Rondé Gadsden in that bowl game, guys, for us, that tight end, kind of Kyle Pitts type. Jamie Tremble is the next up, and he's from the, I think, Macon area, a little south of Atlanta, but he's definitely got that pipeline going. Cam Ward sitting out second half. Thanks, Kevin, for the question. Let me know your guys' thoughts on Cam Ward sitting out in the second half. I think it was pre-planned. I don't know for sure. I would venture to guess it was. I know there was a lot of people that were like, shame on him, that's selfish, etc. Look, he did more than most guys. He played. Most guys didn't. Travis Hunter, Shadur Sanders, they played. Most guys didn't. So good on him for whatever he did. Whether he was chasing a record or not, I love that he played. I'd be curious to get Tommy's thoughts. I know he's not here, Canes fan. Kevin, if we're in a space with him again, we'll ask him about that, because curious to get his thoughts too. I really appreciate that question. Let me know what you think, but I have no problem with it. I mean, it is what it is. It's just, I just did an episode, Kevin, earlier this week, on how to make bowl games matter again, which kind of speaks to this. One of the ideas I had was these NIL deals for players, offering incentives to guys like they do in the NFL. And I think I used the Gronkowski example, how they had the season like sealed up in Tampa regular season wise, and Gronkowski was one touchdown short of meeting his incentive, like his touchdown goal for the year, I guess. And they were going to bench Brady, and Brady said, screw this. Him and Gronk went out there. He threw Gronk a touchdown pass in the last week of the regular season game to make sure Gronk met his quota. So I say that they played, they tried, right? Whether the game mattered or not was irrelevant, but I think that's a way, and again, I go more into detail in the episode on it, but like that's a way that you can make bowl games matter again. If you're NIL collectives, you can say, Cam, put up 4 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns, 200 yards, and we'll pay you 70 grand more, 50 grand more on your NIL deal. Kind of a deal on that versus just saying, yeah, you're good. You met your obligation. The tough part of that we'll probably never know is like what these details of these NIL deals actually are. But I would venture to guess, with the number of guys, elite talent sitting out, that there is not a lot of enough incentive on that for guys. You know what I mean? Like Cam Ward or whoever else to say, hey, you should actually play because you can get a car if you play. You can get a car if your team wins. You can get $30,000 if you score a touchdown. Like incentives, so they can look at that and say, yeah, it's worth a little bit of risk to maybe, if I do get hurt, it affects my draft stock, but I could get 50 grand. And I'm a 3rd round pick. I'm a 4th round pick. I could use that money. You know what I mean? So appreciate that point, that call out. Kevin, you're right. Miami fired their DC today. Saw that. Need to be done, I think. I mean, you got to make changes. Keep upward and onward. Jason said, does this hurt his draft stock? Looked like he quit on his team. Good question. No, I don't think so. Because like I said, I think he played. It was a predetermined thing. He could have just not played. Then, so like Jackson Dart, right? I don't think he's playing in the bowl game. You're going to say like he already quit on his team, but his draft stock wouldn't be affected. You see what I'm saying? Like, you're not going to look at it like that. Nobody would. So I don't think, and I'm not saying you do think this, I think you're just posing a theoretical question, but like, and I appreciate it. I would see it as positive. Like I heard recently, like this is kind of different, Jason, but I appreciate the question to your point. Like NFL agents and scouts and GMs actually appreciate when college players play hurt, because in the NFL you play hurt. you look at our fantasy football rosters if you play fantasy, and it's red after week 5. It's all like questionable, out, IR, like, so I thought that was interesting. But I'm going to wrap it up here, guys. I hope everybody enjoys the games tonight. Good talking, everybody. Thanks for hopping on, and everybody have a good night.